Alright, jumping in here, GM has announced a $691 million investment in an Ontario plant to secure its future. This is a big deal. GM, actively shutting down shifts and laying people off, is now committing to an additional $700 million in spending. First, they're upgrading an existing propulsion plant. What is this $700 million actually going toward? General Motors says they will be investing $691 million to upgrade their propulsion plant in St. Catharines, Ontario. There, they manufacture V8 engines for SUVs and pickup trucks. This investment comes after GM laid off 500 workers and cut the third shift at their Oshawa plant in February. In 2025, they closed their Ingersoll, Ontario plant, where they made BrightDrop electric delivery vans. This closure was due to low demand after spending $1 billion on the facility. GM has also been investing in manufacturing on the US side in these exact types of plants. The St. Catharines plant will become the third in North America, producing GM's sixth-generation V8 engines. The other two plants, in the United States, received slightly higher investments in prior years. This gives St. Catharines a key role in one of GM's most important segments. A GM Canada spokesperson called it another proof point of GM's commitment to Canada. In trade negotiations, it's interesting when companies commit to Canada. What do they see that we're missing? The Canadian auto sector will likely remain contentious in negotiations. Why would GM reinvest $700 million in Canada, with other factories already producing similar engines? It's always confusing when they make moves like that. This isn't the only massive investment in Canada recently. This next one is from Shell. It's foreign direct investment, and it's easy to see it as a massive benefit to Canada. But let's get into the details. They're only buying this as an asset, not a greenfield development. They simply want access to the reserves. So whether Shell or a Canadian company owns it, it's not that beneficial. It's set to be one of the biggest Canadian oil patch deals in over a decade. Shell plans to take over Alberta-based oil and gas producer ARC Resources. Shell's CEO says the $22 billion merger establishes Canada as a heartland for Shell. The Prime Minister labeled the move as a good sign and a vote of confidence in Canada. The federal government aims to fast-track two major LNG projects in British Columbia. One is Silsums, an export facility sending 20 billion cubic meters of natural gas to Asia annually, along with another project Shell co-owns, LNG Canada, which could double production for Shell. They understand all of this and can see strong returns from LNG Canada Phase 2, from developing the reserves and from the liquids associated with it. This wasn't Shell looking at Canada thinking, wow, Canada is going to crush it. Ultimately, their existing reserves were declining, and they needed longer-term access to oil reserves. That's what this transaction really is. It's not a greenfield play. The Shell ARC deal is still going through regulatory approvals, but companies hope to close it later this year. More Canadian energy agreements may be on the way, with companies seeking new oil suppliers. Due to global disruptions caused by the US-Israeli conflict with Iran, I would not be surprised to see more deals happen this year, especially given security concerns. Canada looks like one of the more stable producers in the world. Now, this next announcement is significant from an investment and economic planning perspective, especially as we talk about Canada's potential in the mining sector. The auto story and this announcement together highlight that a proposed defense bank will generate 3,500 jobs. However, it's also looking like there's not going to be a clean resolution on CUSMA, USMCA anytime soon. So we are going to have to find other industries to pivot into, and one of those industries is mining. We keep talking about lumber and forestry, but the math just doesn't check out on the US side. So we may need to look elsewhere, and mining is where we should be leaning. Here's a big announcement. Ontario is fast-tracking the Red Lake transmission line and launching a new hydroelectricity program. Officials say it will help power mining operations, create jobs, and drive economic growth in the north. At the core of Ontario's energy and economic expansion, the province needs clean, reliable power. The transmission line is expected to power new mines, strengthen energy security, and create jobs. More than 5,800 of them, while unlocking $830 million in economic potential. The government has also directed the Independent Electricity System Operator to launch the first ever long-term procurement to secure up to 1 terawatt-hour per year of hydroelectric power. And I want to be positive sometimes. This is genuinely a good thing. Canada needs to invest far more in the mining sector, and we have examples of the government holding back projects. Now onto the forestry piece, because this is where things get a bit frustrating. During the CUSMA-USMCA negotiations, lumber has always been a topic. Some have tried to blame Canada's struggling forestry sector entirely on Donald Trump. But we have a clip here that makes it very clear, yes, trade tensions are part of it, but this is a long-standing issue that predates Trump entirely. Ontario launched its roadmap to protecting the province's forest sector, officials acknowledging it's facing pressure from American tariffs and duties. Northern Ontario leaders are calling for swift action. The province says the roadmap focuses on defending workers, communities, and businesses by working with the federal government to reduce the impact of American tariffs. A representative from the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities said it plainly, "We had problems in the forest industry for the last 10 years. Did you catch that? 10 years. This is not a Trump problem. It is a structural, long-standing Canadian problem, and it's time to be bold about addressing it." The province says it has already invested $350 million into the sector since 2020. Ontario's NDP Shadow Minister for Natural Resources and Forestry added that now would be a good time to create certainty for fiber markets through tools like power purchase agreements, noting that biomass and chip production could be stabilized if the government was willing to offer them. But so far, that commitment hasn't come. 1 in 4 communities in Northern Ontario rely on the forest sector. If the trade situation with the US isn't going to resolve itself quickly, we need to find other markets or pivot aggressively to other industries. And that other industry, as I keep saying, is mining. After all these positive announcements, we get yet another story about projects being held up. First Nation leaders in Manitoba are voicing opposition to a federal bill recognizing Red River Métis self-governance, specifically Bill C-21. The Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs says the bill could infringe on existing treaty rights and doesn't provide a clear framework to prevent overlap on treaty land and jurisdiction, citing an absence of enforceable safeguards. AMC says Ottawa hasn't properly consulted with First Nation leadership and is calling on Canada to uphold First Nation sovereignty and address outstanding legal uncertainties before advancing new governance frameworks. Manitoba Métis Federation President David Chartrand responded that this bill does not infringe. Now here's something that genuinely surprised me, and I want to show it because I honestly couldn't believe this clip existed. Mark Carney actually called out the Cowichan ruling in BC. And if you've been following, it's serious stuff. The rulings we've seen, the threats to private property rights, the unknown jurisdictional implications, all of it is concerning. And there are additional worries about foreign actors trying to exploit these legal gray areas to gain leverage over Canadian land near the US border. Heavy stuff. But here was Carney on property rights in BC. He said, and let's remember these words, private property rights are fundamental, and this government will always protect them. Let's hold him to that. He went on to say that this government fundamentally disagrees with the BC Supreme Court's decision on Cowichan, that they immediately appealed that decision alongside the government of BC, the city of Richmond, and other First Nations, and that they will always advance viable legal arguments to protect private property. He confirmed that federal agreements including agreements about Aboriginal title, have always and will always protect private property. Honestly, kind of crazy that he came out that strongly against the decision and confirmed the appeal. After everything we talked about, the investments, the First Nations opposition, all of it, to then hear him say that was pretty remarkable.